Yo, what is good, peasants? JV back here today with some more Pokemon Unite content, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a tier list. It's going to be a bit different. Today we're going to be looking at all of the attackers in the game and deciding what I would do to balance them. So this is a Buff Nerf tier list attacker edition. Let me know which role you want to see next. I'm going to go through every role in its own video. Maybe we'll lump supporters and speedsters together. So if you want to see that next, if you want to see all-arounders or defenders, let me know which one you want to do next, and we'll be sure to make that happen, because anything beats playing Pokemon Unite at this point. So we're going to go ahead and talk about like I said, which characters or how I would balance every character in the game. We have To the Moon tier, which are characters that I would like to see a big buff for. We have a slight bump tier, which characters that I could see using a little bit of a tweak. We have the no touch tier, which is don't touch this, it's fine. We have a slight tweak of Pokemon that could use a little bit of a nerf, maybe. And then we have the delete it from the game tier, which let's go ahead and get this started off right. I don't need to talk about it. Like, yeah, this is the reason no one's playing this game. It's the reason why the game is in such a horrible state. I don't need to talk about it more. So yeah, it's ridiculous at this point. It's worse than Zacian ever was, and I'm baffled. But moving on, let's go ahead and talk about, we'll do Cinder first. Let's do the ADCs first, and then we'll do the mages second. So let's do all the ADCs at once, and we'll kind of compare them to each other as ADCs versus mages, which me too, I guess it's kind of both. So we won't really compare them to like Duraludon to Ninetails, because they're not exactly the same sort of playstyle, but we'll compare Duraludon to the rest of these guys. Let's go ahead and start with Cinder though, and I don't think you really need to do too much of Cinderace. They gave it the Pyro Ball buff a little while back, and they gave it the Unite Charge buff a little while back, and it feels fine. It's just outclassed. Like, that's the problem with all of these physical attack damage characters, in that they just feel a little bit outclassed because they don't have Spoon. Now, the Curse Bang will help them a little bit. Yeah, the answer is it helped them out a little bit, but the reason it's not better, they're not better, is because, well, the special attackers also got an item that negates healing. So yeah, I think just special attack range characters are always going to be a little bit better, just because of things like Spoon and other things. But I think Cinder, for the most part, is fine. I don't really think you need to do much of anything to it, so we'll leave it there. Greninja, I would like to see a tiny buff to Greninja. Ooh, let me go ahead and move these guys actually 1 second. Okay, I wouldn't mind seeing a tiny buff to Greninja. I wouldn't change either of its secondary abilities, that being Smoke Screen or Double Team. In fact, I think Smoke Screen is low-key pretty overpowered, but I think giving it a slight buff to its Unite Charge, like everything else has been getting recently, wouldn't be the worst idea. And I think also buffing Water Shuriken's damage a slight bit as well wouldn't be, again, the worst thing ever, because Water Shuriken never gets played. Surf is fine, you don't really need to touch Surf. And then Greninja, for as good as its ult is, it's one of the better things about the Pokemon. It's not exactly phenomenal, and if you compare it to Cinderace's ult, just one for one, because they essentially do the same thing. Greninja's ult charge is, let's see, its ult charge is 134 seconds compared to Cinderace's being 112 seconds. So yeah, knock about 20 seconds off of Gren's ult charge. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world, and it would be a nice little buff for it. Spoiler alert, I don't think we're going to have anything in the To the Moon tier, by the way, for attackers. Decidueye, I don't think you need to touch Decidueye. You could talk me into lowering its Unite Charge cooldown as well if you want to, but its Unite is already bad anyway. It's actually 150 seconds, which is even longer than Cinderace's. So you know what? Yeah, buff its Unite Move Charge. You're buffing everything else's Unite Move Charge. We'll get to something else that needs a Unite Move Charge buff in a little bit, or perhaps even a nerf. So yeah, maybe we buff that, but other than that, there's nothing wrong with the Decidueye's kit. Maybe a slight tweak to Leaf Storm, or not a slight tweak, a slight bump, because I don't want to say slight tweak because that's one of the other tiers. So maybe just the tiniest little tweak to Leaf Storm, give it a little bit more pushback, maybe a little bit more range on the pushback, so you can hit people from further away, so you can actually keep speedsters off of you. That'd be a good reason to actually take it over Shadow Sneak, or maybe make Shadow Sneak a dash. I don't know, you don't really need to do anything too crazy like that, but yeah, give it more Unite Charge, because its Unite move is pretty terrible. And for the love of God, if you play Decidueye, especially if you play Spirit Shackle, stop using its Unite move to secure. You're bad, and everyone laughs at you when you do it, so just know that. All right, next up we have Dragapult, and for Dragapult, I don't think you really need to touch this character, because this is a Pokemon that can get really out of hand really fast. If anything, I would lean slight bump again, but like I said, this is a Pokemon that can get very out of hand very fast if you buff it too much, because there already is an argument for Dragonite being very good, and I do think Dragonite is actually quite a solid build. I've been trying to play it a little bit because it's just really fun, and just every game I've played anything other than Defender or Supporter this season, I get, you know, just throat stomped by Mewtwo Blissey. So, and even when I'm playing Defender and Supporter, it still happens all the time, but that's every game, so we just have to cry and be sad about it. Either way, though, maybe, you know, buff Phantom Force, because I think Phantom Force is quite terrible, but everything else about Dragon Bolt feels fine. It's just outclassed, because attack damage characters are just outclassed in this game compared to special attack characters. And then lastly, for the ADCs, we have our guy, Duraludon. I don't think you need to touch Duraludon. Like, they nerfed this character into the ground, and it still feels decent. They got rid of a lot of what Duraludon did, which was rip objectives, and it's still pretty solid at ripping objectives. It's decent in a team fight now. Has piss poor mobility, but that's a decent thing. If anything, you might actually need to bump Flash Cannon up to the move, because Flash Cannon is terrible. Nah, I just want to trigger Flash Cannon players, because every time I talk bad about Flash Cannon, I get comments telling me how wrong and how stupid I am. But Flash Cannon is just, it is bad. Compared to Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse is just so good, so I don't really think you need to do anything to it. Flash Cannon is viable if you really want to be a, you know, worse Cramorant. You can, or, you know, a worse Chandelure ult, but all the time. So yeah, if you really want to be those things, play Flash Cannon by all means. But all right, moving on to Pikachu. You don't need to touch this Pokemon. What did they do to it recently? The Thunderbolt buff was massive for this character. Curse Incense was massive for this character. Moving into the mages now, I think Pikachu is fine exactly where it is. Cramorant, I also think is fine. It's another Pokemon you could talk me into maybe slightly bumping up a little bit, because I do think Hurricane is a little bit bad, but it's honestly not either. Like, Hurricane is totally fine. It's extremely viable. It's just maybe a tiny little range increase, but then again, that move could get out of hand really quickly because it is very good CC. You could give it the 112 Unite move charge if you want to. It's 123 right now. I don't think you really need to do that, though. We'll just leave Cram where it is. Ninetails, just nerf its cooldowns a little bit more, or maybe even nerf the damage on Avalanche Blizzard. I don't think you need to do a lot to Ninetails, but it does do a ton of damage. So maybe just slightly lower the damage numbers, but then again, it can also use a buff to its Unite move charge. Does it, though? That's a lot of what these buffs are going to be for attackers, by the way. It's just Unite move charge, because they're not at all universal. Some characters have like 20-second Unite move charges. Some have like 150. It's 112 for Snow Globe, so no, you don't need to change that, actually. So yeah, just a slight nerf to its damage would be fine. Venusaur, I think, is fine. I think both of its builds are extremely viable. You could always talk about like maybe a tiny Sludge Bomb buff, but Sludge Bomb is actually pretty okay at the moment, so we'll leave that there. Then we have Gardav War. Again, I'm sorry, don't need to really overthink this one either. Don't touch it. It's totally really good. It's better in jungle than lane. You could maybe buff its early game, but I don't really want this thing to be a demon in lane. I want you to be punished for playing this character in lane, because it's bad in lane. It's supposed to be bad in lane. It's a damage dealer. It's a mage. It's a late game demon. So yeah, you don't need to have a good early game on a character like this. So I don't know. I like Gardav War. Where it's at, we'll leave it there. And then Sylveon, I think a slight bump could be in order, because Sylveon, this is one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video and do attackers first, because Sylveon has, for no reason, 139 seconds. That's equivalent to Greninja. That's even higher than Greninja's Unite move charge, I think. I don't remember. I think Greninja's was like 134 or something. Whatever it was, it's way too high for how bad Sylveon ult is. The only good thing about Sylveon ult is you heal a lot. That's it. That's the only good thing about Sylveon ult. So yeah, buff that. Just buff its cooldown. You don't need to do anything else to it. Everything else about Sylveon is totally fine to really good. So yeah, we'll do that. And then for Delphox, just a slight tweak. Maybe raise its Unite move charge to 112, so it's in line with Cinder, Ninetails, all those guys. Nerf Fire Spin. I think Fire Spin is pretty broken, pretty brutal. Lower the range it chases people on. That'd be fine. Like, it chases way too far. So maybe you can lower that. Lower its Unite move charge. I don't think you need to do a ton to Delphox. It's a character that actually requires aiming, which is rare for a speedster or for a special attacker, and rare for a lot of Pokemon in Pokemon Unite is having to aim. So I don't think you need to do too much to nerf Delphox. There's too many nerfs and this character becomes bad. Glaceon is another character. It's not doing particularly well in terms of win rate right now. I believe it's actually the lowest in the game, or second lowest, above only Blaziken. So like, I don't think you need to nerf this Pokemon, but it does feel very powerful in the right hands. I think it's just a weird meta thing. Like, I think just having to deal with this thing inherently makes it less good. So I don't know. it gets his passive proc too easily by Mewtwo. I don't know. Like, if anything, I would lean nerfing Glazon because it's still incredibly strong, but with its win rate being so bad, I don't really want to nerf it too hard, so we'll just leave it in no touch. If anything, love its Unite move. Its Unite move is pretty terrible, but it's good for what it does. It gives you stacks. It does no damage, though. Yeah, all of its abilities are incredibly strong. Nerf the hell out of Icicle Spear, actually. Just delete. Can we delete Icicle Spear from the game? I don't know. Glaceon's weird because it is such a bad win rate, but it's just such a good Pokemon that I don't really know. I'm gonna put it in slightly nerf because I hate Icicle Spear and that move is broken as hell. Espeon's totally fine. Stored power doesn't do too much damage for not having to aim, and then Side Shock actually requires aiming, so I don't really have a problem with Espeon. Has a good passive. Its Unite move charge is, I'm pretty sure, fine. I think it's 112 as well. Maybe it's in the 130 range or like 120 range, but it's not buff worthy, I don't think. It's actually 100 seconds, so yeah, it's totally fine. You don't need to touch Espeon at all. Mew's pretty good. I can see a slight tweak to Mew just to maybe lower its damage, but then again, Mew is just such a high skill ceiling character. It's, again, I go back to what I said in my Garchomp video about Blaziken. Mew is a high skill ceiling character that you could actually get more out of if you're better at it. Blaziken, there's like a ceiling cap on that mon. And other characters, there's like a ceiling cap on the mon. They're like, no matter how good you are, the character's still just gonna suck based on how it performs in the meta. Mew is a character that if you're really good at Mew, you're gonna do incredible things with Mew. But if you don't know how to play it, then you're just kind of gonna be useless. So I think Mew is perfectly fine the way it is. Good Mews, you want to delete them from the game. Solo Q Mews, you're like, oh my god, this character is the worst thing in the world. So it is more than a lot of other characters, truly dependent on the player itself, whether or not you would want to buff or nerf it. So we'll go ahead and just leave it there, because it's, like I said, mostly player-based dependent. And then lastly, we have our friend Chandelure. And for Shandy, I'm gonna go slight bump. Maybe slight bump, because I think its Unite move is really bad, but it's strong if you hit it. Like, the only thing is, like, give it Unstoppable, which I guess might be buffing it to the moon. Do I really want that, though? Not really, because what other attacker has, like, an Unstoppable Unite move? You don't really need that. So, I don't know. Maybe make it less cancelable. I don't know, just do something to make its Unite move slightly better, because I think it's pretty terrible. That's kind of all I really have to say for Chandelure. There's not a whole lot else. I think it does really good damage. I don't think you need to touch either of its other moves, Imprison or Poltergeist. I think they're both fine. Overheat, maybe fix the bug. Maybe fix the thing where if you don't get all, or you don't click it at the right time, it doesn't work at all. That'd be cool if maybe it would work when you clicked it. That'd be pretty nice. So yeah, that's a bump. That's a buff. What else is there? You can buff Flamethrower. I think Flamethrower is pretty bad. Yeah. Maybe a slight bump to Chandelure. Nothing too crazy, though. But yeah, that's going to be attackers. Like I said, let me know which role you want me to do next. I'm okay with any of them. We'll go ahead and lump speedsters and supporters, like I said, into the same video. So if you want that next, let me know. We can do all-arounders. We can do defenders. We can do whatever you guys want. So that being said, I forgot about Inteleon. I almost didn't do it. I was looking down to see which role we could do next and notice Inteleon. Yeah, I'm on deleted levels with Inteleon because Liquidation is so unbelievably broken, it's not even funny. If Mewtwo wasn't doing Mewtwo things, Liquidation would be just as bad. Like, Liquidation is so broken. Just not having to aim and being able to delete literally every single character in this tier, except for maybe Venusaur and maybe Cramorant. Like, fully charged Liquidation can legitimately one-shot pretty much every other attacker except Sylveon and maybe Venusaur. Like, it's crazy how good Liquidation is so broken. Nerf Liquidation. Now, that being said, do you want to see speedsters and supporters next, all-rounders, or defenders? I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate y'all watching. Take it easy.